Hello, friends. In this Lent season, let us focus on throwing ourselves into the hands of God and receiving what He gives us. Recently, read a short story. Let me share it with you. A 5-year-old boy was playing in front of his house by throwing a ball up in the air. An elderly priest who was passing that way asked the boy what he was doing. The little boy, with innocence, answered, I am playing a game of catching the ball with God. I throw the ball in the air, and He throws it back to me. The senior priest was pretty amused at the simple answer, and as he moved ahead, he thought in his mind, although the boy, in his innocence, just said his experience of a law of nature. In that simple statement, he also expressed a religious reality. Divine experience is this: throwing off ourselves into the hand of God and receiving what He gives to us. That's very true, isn't it? Divine experience is throwing off ourselves into hands of God and receiving what He gives to us. When we throw ourselves into hands of God and receive what He gives us, that is the experience of transfiguration. The disciples shared in this joy. You and me are invited today. The scene of the transfiguration is one of the most captivating and thrilling scenes of the Gospels. We shall look into this account of the transfiguration through the eyes of St. Matthew's Gospel. It's interesting to see that this scene takes place on a high mountain. Mountains play a key role in the Gospel of St. Matthew. Mountains, of course, dot the landscape of the biblical regions. They are a great part of the physical reality of the biblical world. They are symbolic of being closer to God. St. Matthew's Gospel has a particular love for this lofty symbol of God's presence. To mention a few, Jesus underwent a temptation by Satan on the Mount of Temptations. Jesus delivers His sermon and teachings on the Mount of Discernment. Jesus performs many deeds of healings on the Mount of the Sea of Galilee. Jesus is transfigured on the Mount of Transfiguration. Jesus gives His final teaching and discourse on the Mount of Olives. Jesus gives up His life on the Mount of Calvary. Jesus delivers His final mission of dying on the cross on the Mount of Galilee. So, in this lofty and high place of the presence of God, a mountain, Jesus undergoes His transfiguration and is joined by the presence of two other mountain figures, Moses and Elijah. Moses is the man of the Mount of Sinai and Mount Nebo, representing the law of God. Elijah is the man of the Mount of Carmel, representing the prophets of God. Jesus is the God and man of the mountains, the fulfillment of all the laws and the prophets. What is the purpose of the many mountain settings of the transfiguration scene? To look further, to imagine deeper, to hear beyond, to see the way God sees, to imagine the way God perceives us, to hear the way God wants us. We all need transfiguration moments in our lives, a transfiguration experience in our lives, vision that needs to be transfigured into God's representation, imagination that needs to be transfigured into God's resemblance, hearing that needs to be transfigured into God's resonance. Let us take courage and accompany the Lord beyond the peripheral problems of life, way away from the hardships and difficulties of our physical, mental, spiritual, emotional worries, to climb the mountain of spiritual closeness and presence of the Lord and share in the joy of the transfiguration. Life has much more to offer. Life has much more to be expected. Life has much more to hope for. Let us throw our lives into hands of God and receive what He gives to us, and thus be transformed to find joy in God's will. Have a blessed Lenten season. Thank you.